Other insights? Yes.
Question 19, because it has a picture there,
Yes.
maybe the students take that more as an environment, they use a picture clue, because we actually went through the data from our school and quite a number of them said that the environment is affected, so they're taking their prior knowledge, plus they're using the picture clue, rather than drawing the inference there and looking deeper into the text.
A couple of points there. We are going to look in a moment and track through some of your students, and then what does that mean for us in terms of the AIZ pie I'll talk about, I'll call it. You've actually gone through, and it is useful to say, well, okay, why did our students go off on a tangent, particularly if a large group did? And I've done that and looked at that at state level. But can we come back to what 30% of the state, actually, if we stick on question 19, 30% of the students in the state were able to correctly answer that. Now, okay, they are the top. You'll say, oh, because we know that there's a range of questions with a range of difficulties in a test. We know that. And okay, they would be potentially our top 30% students in reading comprehension on this day in this test in the state. However, that 30% actually amounts to hundreds of children. And some of those children are here in the north. So what were they able to do that these weren't, is the question. Because what they were successfully doing, our question in terms of AIZ, the evidence that they are giving us will have implications for our work with these students, because if that's a pattern for them, we know it could be a fluke, we know it could be one-off, but if we've got evidence of a student doing very, very well, what we need to do is come back here and say, well, if they're going very well in reading comprehension, what is my work, what is our work as a team to move that student on? And what about the students who are just here? Whatever these students were able to bring together, that's our work for the students who are just here. Does that make sense to you? So we need to go a little deeper. We know it's inference, and this is what I was saying to you. We know we get that report that says, okay, this is the skill. But our knowledge needs to go a little deeper, and we need to be able to look at it and say, what does a successful reader do? Because what a successful reader does is the pattern for what our teaching needs to be. And it's the area for the depth of knowledge and understanding for us and for our staff. Someone else had a hand up? Yes. Yeah.
They may have used keywords to direct themselves to the part of the text that will target their answer.
Yes, they may have. But and this is true. We don't have the student in front of us. And just to put that also in AIZ terms, there's inference there. It's not actual evidence, but it is true. It may be what they did. But in a PLT, we would say, well, actually, that's inference. It's not actual evidence. But it is true. It may be what they did, and it's certainly something we would teach. And this is, we can only operate at the level of inference here because we weren't there when those 30 did it. But we can analyse what you actually have to do. You have to read inferentially, but what else did you have to do to find your way through in that question? Yes?
One of the things I think you have to do is stay within the text.
Yes. Yes, good point. And I know you had an in-depth discussion there. Yes.
Yeah. And Kate picked this up too, without being okay. But the things that we were talking about,
Yes.
that it was the students' capacity to abandon their own persona, to abandon their own senses.
Yes.
And we felt that in this we could, and a number of students would have said, oh, environment, I think plastic bags are a very bad thing.
Yes.
Or train response or whatever. But what they failed to do then was to forget about what they thought was to stay within the text.
Yes.
Keep that perspective or keep their point of view or keep being observers of other people's points of view.
And looking in the text for what was there. It is true, your prior knowledge can certainly help. But you also need to be able to read, because were the answers, put it this way, was the answer there in the text, or did the test assume that everyone will bring their prior knowledge and that's where you find the answer? Was the answer there in it? Yes. So if we look at it from just a reading perspective, the answer was there. Good point. Did anyone else look at other things you would have had to do there? Yes.
Sort through a lot of irrelevant.
Excellent. Can you say that again?
Have to sort through a lot of irrelevant information.
Yes, and this comes back to your point about finding key information. The report that you get says the skill is infers a message in a persuasive text, and that is true. However, what you also needed to be able to do was sort through a whole range of information because there was competing information there. There was also, you had to actually understand the main idea of this text. You had to be able to stand back from it, pull the pieces together and understand the main idea. You also needed to connect some information in the first paragraph to information in the last paragraph. If we have a really quick look at it in front of us, and this is where your point about sorting through the information. If we have a look at it, in the first paragraph it actually states, the last sentence says, making people pay for these plastic bags would encourage them to use reusable bags. If you drop down to the last paragraph, it says, making people pay will help to stop them using plastic bags and force them to use reusable bags. Then, if you link that back up to the title, should we pay for plastic bags, is the title. So, can you see how that definition of inferring a message actually does not take our discussion and our understanding deep enough? That actually what the successful reader would do and what you would have done to answer choose the correct response, which you would have done is, you would have been able to connect all of that information and say, oh, okay, that in the first paragraph, that in the last paragraph, that's the heading there. Does that make sense to you? And does it illustrate to you the point where we really need to be able to dig deeper as teachers? Because would you say it's a reasonable thing that if I can identify certain students who I might need to teach how to connect information across paragraphs? Would that be a reasonable thing for me as a teacher of comprehension? Would it be reasonable to say that really, to understand a main idea, I really need to understand that the title would be heading me in that direction? The whole text is going to be about and heading that direction? Can you see how this is a deeper level of understanding than just getting out that skill level report? It is a great starting place and it is useful. But just to get that understanding of our work, that part of the pie about our work, we really need to go deeper and deeper in our understanding of how to teach comprehension and what would be the elements, how to identify them in students, and then for this student, taking them next will be that particular point. Does that make sense to you? And I'm happy to be challenged. Once you see it, you can actually do it automatically. And I'm not saying it doesn't take time to build up this level of understanding with our staff. But it is essential. This is what the successful comprehenders do. Did anyone have a look at question 24? 54% of the state were correct, which is great, but that means half of our students were not able to negotiate through what they needed to do. Did anyone discuss that question? Okay. What it is, the report, the NAPLAN report says infers meaning in a story, which it does. But what it doesn't link anything to, and I know that there was a discussion up here, have a look at the word lurched and have a discussion at your table about what you think the role of the word lurched might be in answering that question. Just really quickly for a moment.